Good evening, guys. Welcome. It is Saturday night. It is Pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you notice a little something different by the visual, you can see that we now have our pack. I think I'm pointing in the right direction, or it may be in that direction, whichever one. Revolutionary Change pack is official. And for those of you who did not catch our 5-year anniversary stream that happened on Thursday night, we had a huge announcement at the end of the stream related to how we personally are going to use our platform to fight back against the AIPACs, against the Israel lobby as a whole. And the way that we're going to do that is through our own super PAC called Revolutionary Change PAC. Now, what separates us from anybody else who's out there who's trying to do a PAC, who's trying to help out? Well, the most important thing to remember about our philosophy in terms of how we are going to go about doing business is that everything goes through Jen and I. There is no consulting firm. There are no outside voices. We have already indicated who the first slate of 3, perhaps there will be some others. We know you guys have mentioned a few options that we should strongly consider, and we certainly will, especially one in Michigan. But want to be very clear that anything and everything that is going to go on in this pack is going to be done directly through us, as well as influence from individuals like yourselves that support our channel. So keep that in mind. And so if you are considering contributing this evening, whether through a super chat, whether through Patreon, or you can now contribute directly to Revolutionary Change PAC. So you have 3 options. Yes, we know about Jose Vega. We've been very clear about where we stand regarding that situation. We love Jose. We know that he's got a mountain to climb. Having an infrastructure is very important, but we're going to do what we can to help him either way. So we're very happy that you're all here this evening. Obviously, for those of you that are over at Status Quo, they are going live, or they are still live right now as we speak. I do believe that the audience will be directed over to us once it has concluded. Obviously, we have a lot of issues related to the domestic police state that is forming. But so much of that, in my opinion, as I'm sure most of you would agree, stems directly from the fact that we have allowed this, you could call it fascism, you could call it oligarchy, you can call it dictatorship, all of these elements that have been decades upon decades in the making from a lot of consequential policy decision makings. And that is how we ended up where we are today. It is not just one person, although I know a lot of people in power would just love to blame the Donald, that he's the one at fault. And that's not to say that he does not bear responsibility for a lot of negative things that are going on today, especially how he shoots at the hip and his brain's going bye-bye at this point. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fight on our hands that is just getting started. And I want to be very clear, as Jen and I pointed out the other night, what to make of this ceasefire. I don't want to go into it thinking that it can't possibly succeed or that there isn't something positive that will come from it. Obviously, bombs raining down from above is a great first step in not happening at this moment. And so maybe there is some semblance of safety that is currently being undertaken by the people that are there. But what is to make of what is going to happen going forward? And I wanted to open with this clip that I'm guessing a lot of you have not seen. There is going to be a rewriting of history in the immediacy that a lot of people are not going to be talking about to the extent that they should. AIPAC, in particular, is already trying to rebrand themselves. Surprising, but not really. And then you also have leadership, if you want to call it that, like Jared Kushner, the president's daughter's husband. And this is what this fool, this pencil neck bureaucrat, son of a criminal, decided to say from Tel Aviv just a couple of hours ago.
Instead of replicating the barbarism of the enemy, you chose to be exceptional. You chose to stand for the values that you stand for. And I couldn't be prouder to be a friend of Israel.
Okay, So he's a friend of Israel. He wants you to know that, as if you didn't know that already. But here's the kicker, ladies and gentlemen. This is a guy who is already coming out and saying that the mass murder of about 750,000 people, including about 500,000 children, is moral and just. And he couldn't be prouder of what they accomplished. And in case you're wondering whether this guy's going rogue or whether or not, I almost said Melania, but whether or not Ivanka actually cares and has a heart herself, no. You know what you're getting into when you get married. She knew who Charles Kushner was. She knows what his son is up to. And this is also part and parcel why you guys are going to want to check out, I believe the clip is dropping tonight or tomorrow, that Matt Kim put together that we're going to play regarding the whole redevelopment of Gaza plan. And who do you think is at the forefront of the redevelopment of Gaza? You're looking at him. That's who. That's who gets put in charge of these projects, these multi-billion-dollar endeavors. War is profitable, baby. And mass murdering hundreds of thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people in what in the end will probably cross at least 1 million dead people. It's sad, it's tragic, but how much money are we going to make as a result of it? And that is why winning the PR game, I didn't have enough bandwidth tonight to get to a content creator that I really wanted to go in on a lot recently, but we're going to save that most likely to next Saturday. But winning the PR battle is what is so important to people like this. It's inherent within them that even if they are mass murdering psychopathic criminals, that at least they look good in front of the camera. Even though this guy couldn't look good in front of the camera on his best day and my worst day. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but Jared Kushner does look like the American Psycho. Sorry, Christian Bale, but I just got to put that out there. He has a little bit more to say.
Somebody who supports Israel and somebody who fights very strongly to see Israel survive, succeed, and to achieve its fullest potential.
So what potential and goals would that be, Jared? Could it be that the reason why, I'm just spitballing here, the only reason why a ceasefire actually took place within the last 48 hours is because Israel's got bigger plans. One of those plans involves bombing Lebanon, which has already begun. And if the goal is to ultimately try to antagonize Iran into a full-scale war and try to drag us in, hey, they're really pushing their limits at this point. To not even have a shred of humility regarding what has, not what did happen, what is still happening. This genocide is not over, no matter what anyone will have you believe. But getting out in front of all the people that you think would be good to be hosting a press conference. I tell you, the Zionists, if there's one thing we can be grateful for with them, they're really bad at this. They are really bad at the PR game. And as our friend Rothbone likes to say, they are accelerating their extinction. They're going through a speed run, as he likes to put it. And I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you for what? The cynicism that we should all be feeling right now when you realize how inhumane they really are. When people ask, how do you dehumanize people so easily? And as we see it stateside here, we see it quite often, when it comes to the anti-Muslim bigotry, which just never seems to let up. it should come as no surprise to anybody that we continue to descend into hell. And it, again, should not come as any surprise to anybody. Because as I said, Israel right now, it is being reported that the ceasefire has already been broken. That should not come as anybody's surprise. But I will show you. And it pains me to do this because I do want people to have some degree of optimism. I do. I don't want people to think that it is completely hopeless for the Palestinians. And I know there have been people that have been commenting on the podcast claiming that I'm a coward or that I'm inhumane and I don't get it. No, I get it. I got this from day one, just as Jen did. This is our responsibility to make sure that it can't ever happen again with Israel controlling our country. The severing of this relationship must commence. The neocons clearly have a lot on Trump because he's going right along with it. And in the end, the buck stops with him. He's not doing anything to stop it. And so I can't sympathize with anyone who still feels that, oh, but Trump has done this. And no, he hasn't. He's been a disaster. And anybody with any semblance of honesty would say, yeah, he has. I was hoodwinked. But, you know, that's the great thing about what I've seen a lot from those that are part of, call it MAGA or America First. A lot of people know that they've been hoodwinked. Whereas a lot of people are still trying to push Kamala Harris that identify as liberal or shit-lib, depending on your preference of language. But as the Palestine Chronicle indicates here, in a live blog within the last 24 hours, Israel has already violated the ceasefire. And not only have they already violated the ceasefire, they have already bombed southern Lebanon. So that has already commenced. We are knee-deep in this shit because they're just trying to buy time. For what, I'm not entirely sure. But as many have pointed out, as long as Milikowski Netanyahu is in power, there will be no peace. There cannot be any chance of a slowdown because then they might catch him. And so just because there is a temporary ceasefire, that does not mean that there isn't a situation that has already been planned out way ahead of time in terms of where to redirect the firepower. And if you have to question whether or not the ceasefire actually is holding, now is as good a time as any to have another fleet of flotillas heading to Gaza. If it's a ceasefire, if the violence is over, then they really shouldn't have a problem with people bringing aid, now should they? I would think. A cautious calm settled over the Gaza Strip after the Israeli Prime Minister's office announced early Friday morning that the government had officially ratified U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to end the war and secure the release of detainees. The Gaza Civil Defense urges residents not to return to areas previously occupied by Israeli forces until the withdrawal is officially declared complete. And again, these numbers, I can't even read this, are so habitually incorrect, saying that Israel has killed 67,211 and has injured 170,000. Again, completely reduced in terms of their numbers. So I can't take any of that without a grain of salt, and neither should anybody else. But what I will say, and I know a lot of you are mentioning it in the chat, I'll get to that after this segment about Diane Keaton, who had one of the great acting careers, was part of the greatest, one of the greatest films, two greatest films of all time, in The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. She also had one of the greatest scenes in Hollywood, in film history, with her and Al Pacino in The Godfather 2 when she said she had an abortion. But one more clip to play. Very important. Always want to highlight friends of the show that are talking about the implications of what is going on right now. And that, of course, is Omar Badir, who was on CNN this yesterday afternoon.
Frankly, a genocidal war that has completely devastated the Gaza Strip. I mean, this onslaught has broken so many records in terms of the number of journalists who've been killed, the number of medics, the number of UN workers, and even the sheer number of children who have been dismembered or lost their lives in it. So any end to that is certainly welcome, and you can see it in the joy that we have seen in the images coming out of Gaza. Unfortunately, there are many unanswered questions in terms of the long term, though. There is an unanswered question about whether this is going to be a real end to that violence, because Netanyahu, who, by the way, is wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes, has a history of breaking ceasefires.
Yes, he breaks all of them, and that should probably be expected to happen again in some capacity. It is already being reported on the ground that they have already broken the ceasefire. Now, whether it's a couple of rogue agents that are still just trying to tee off because that's what they want to do, it's certainly possible that it isn't an official directive and that there are just these psychopathic genocidal maniacs that happen to have AR-15s or whatnot and are out there trying to clip anybody and everybody that they see that they perceive as being the enemy, which of course is the Palestinian civilians, because we all know this project is multi-nation reaching. Conflicts all over the world, problems in so many different parts of it. But we're the ones caught in the crosshairs because the dominance over our country is substantial. Now, on Monday, when Jen is here, we're going to talk about this agreement, if you will, with Qatar and what's happening in Idaho. We're just open for business, baby. That's late-stage capitalism, trust me. The engulfment of our nation happens in earnest because you have people that are running it that are not America first, that do not care about this country, rather than deal with some of the, what I would consider infrastructural problems in the nation that can be done, such as restoring Glass-Steagall, undoing NAFTA. There's a lot of things that can be done, but they're not going to do that because the powers that be get rich as a result. And by doing so, we are faced with we're faced with a reckoning in terms of how we do business in this country. Who's going to get rich and who's going to get screwed? But it's on a whole other level here. So let's hear more of what Omar has to say.
Witnessing that in Lebanon right now, where there is a one-sided ceasefire, where there are literally thousands of Israeli violations of that ceasefire ongoing in Lebanon. So is Gaza potentially going to go back to that kind of model where there's low-intensity warfare against Gaza instead of large-scale? And the other question is whether Gaza is going to be allowed to be rebuilt. Israel systematically destroyed Gaza as part of an effort to push the Palestinian population out. Gaza currently in complete ruins, with 92% of housing simply dismantled and destroyed, is not really fit for human habitation.
There are a lot of concerns in Israel that they're releasing people who are only going to come back in the future and hurt them, which we've seen happen in the past.
Yeah. Well,
I cannot emphasize enough that the only reason I'm playing this clip is because of Omar. Anyone who watches CNN is a dupe. But I will also say that if you thought that they were pro-Israel now, there is an attempt by Larry Ellison to now take over and purchase CNN. That's the next move. So in a way, I kind of hope he does, because I hope that everybody realizes what type of propaganda networks they're watching. We're not going to fall on the sword for Israel. I think that's pretty self-explanatory at this point. But the gleefulness within which this woman is kind of saying, you know, the people might be scared that you might actually come back and seek revenge after you mass murdered almost half of their population. And who knows how many more are going to die as a result. So smug and so comfortable from sitting high on the hog. I don't even know this lady's name, and I could give two shits. But Omar has more to say, and he usually says it very pointedly to kind of make somebody like her, I don't know, have a conscious thought of some kind. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, no.
We've seen part of what happens here in this dynamic is that immediately in the aftermath of October 7th, what Israel did is essentially kidnap thousands of Palestinians off the streets in both Gaza and the West Bank. In many cases, those people are held without charge or trial. essentially, frankly, the correct terminology from my perspective is to call them hostages, because that's what they are. You have a much smaller percentage of people who are convicted of committing crimes, but even that is complicated because the legal system in Israel, essentially Palestinians are living under military rule, and they go through military tribunals where there's a 99% conviction rate. So we don't really know who's innocent and who's actually committed a crime and who's simply guilty of resisting the occupation in ways that are legitimate under international law.
It almost sounds like something that's heading here for the States, wouldn't you say? People who do not like this Gestapo-like approach that's happening in major cities regarding ICE and other things. Speaking out and speaking up is going to result in very heavy-handed consequences. And who's going to stand up to it? I don't know. But we are basically a lawless nation now. I've been saying it for a while because we have a federal bureaucracy that trades on inside information all the time, including representatives like Wasserman Schultz, who do it at such an obscene level that one has to wonder if that level of mockery is deliberate, to thumb the eye at the average American and say, yeah, we're crooks, and what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Well, we are doing something about it. We're working on it. That's why we have the PAC. And that's why we cover people like Omar. This is important. And it's important that we continue to spread the word.
But nonetheless, I don't think that this is ultimately about the people who are you releasing and what they might do. There's always going to be people on both sides who are willing to commit acts of violence, and that's always an ever-present danger. What you actually need to do is solve the political injustice underneath. As long as the dynamic is Israel insisting that their solution to the problem is to keep the boot of occupation on the necks of Palestinians, that's somehow going to guarantee security. If the past several decades have not proven to you that this does not work, I don't know what it will take. We have to try something different. That different thing is allowing Palestinians to be free in their own land. And we need external pressure on Israel to take that seriously, to recognize Palestinian humanity, and to say that any rights that Israelis are entitled to, certainly Palestinians should be entitled to as well.
Well, you're going to be holding your breath until you croak, because that's never happening. That is what I want people to understand here. The polling says it. The actions say it even louder. There is going to be no peace in the Middle East as long as Israel exists. That's a fact. The only reason that there is any type of a ceasefire is because there are other priorities that are taking shape for the genocidal state right now. Lebanon, and ultimately Iran. That's all. It was well documented that the flotillas that were getting close to the beachhead in Gaza, that by having to redirect so much of Israel's navy away from the beachhead, Palestinians were able to fish for the first time in 2 years. Now imagine what'll happen. The more that they get restless and agitated about everything that's going on. My guess, they're not going to like it. Because that's what's coming next. And I, for one, appreciate the optimism. I do. I think Omar's a great guy. He's been on our podcast multiple times. I know he's fighting the good fight. And he's trying to make a difference, as we all are. But I would be approaching this with a very healthy dose of skepticism that we're ever getting anywhere that we want to go. That I believe. I don't see this as being the end. And frankly, what we just witnessed is something that they are going to desperately try to sweep under the rug. They are going to try to they're already rewriting history. You've got psychopath, pencil neck, American psycho Kushner getting in front of a press conference and saying, most moral army, you all did an amazing job. Again, they're going to try to rewrite history, and they're doing it here at home right now. They are allowing the Zionist billionaire class to buy up all of the media, all of it. You get CBS, now you'll get CNN. And after CNN, you get TikTok. And after TikTok, well, you've already got Zuckerberg owning Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook, so that's covered. But pretty soon, they'll go after NBC. They'll go after Fox. They'll go after all of it if they have to. Fox has been a loyal soldier. MSNBC has too, maybe not to the same degree, but pretty close. Maybe ABC News will be next. Who knows? But this is what happens. And yet you have the Democratic establishment trying to rehabilitate the president who brought us the Telecom Act and completely destroyed independent media in the United States. Journalism, accountability, it's all gone. All of it. It's been gone for a while. So again, all the guardrails were removed, things were put into place, and now you're seeing the effects of why we need those protections. And I am an advocate for the free market, because as a free market advocate, you can't have a system that actually works for the average person if it's a kill or be killed type system. You need balance. You cannot have capitalism without socialism. And this is a great example of what ends up happening if we just allow, again, the two-party system is a complete failure. It's been a complete failure for multiple generations now. It probably always was. We used to have different shifts, but there has never been a legitimate shift away from what we're currently facing. And because of that, we are now looking at a situation where we don't know where the hell to go. But the answer is certainly not within the two-party duopoly. We know that as much as anybody. And that is why we say that elections do matter, but they are not going to save us under any circumstances. So that's why we have to strive forward and fight in a way that, perhaps we didn't actually think we would have to. But this level of rewriting of history that's going to come, it's happening in real time. But one person that I wanted to highlight that has done an exceptional job, that has really, in so many respects, I remember when Abby Martin cried, this is probably a year ago now, talking about these babies being mass murdered and what it did to her, how it ate her alive. And she went on with Piers Morgan, who, again, listen, everyone has an opinion about Piers, but to his credit, he's one of the largest platforms out there that is doing somewhat of a Charlie Kirk style of debating, where he will bring on the honest voices, the people that actually are fighting on the side of justice. And so he did. Piers moron. Okay, listen, call him what you want, but Abby's the real deal. And here's what she had to say.
Droning on and on with the most outrageous propaganda possible, basically saying, oh, they say that this many kids died of starvation, but really, that's a lie. We've seen the photos, Jonathan. It's skin and bones. It's like concentration camp victims coming out of the Holocaust. Do you know that we see this? I know that Israel's like to control the narrative with the billions of dollars with Hasbro propaganda, but we see the photos of starving children. We see doctors' testimonies saying baby formula was seized out of their bags. Baby formula. Why are you punishing babies?
They're punishing babies because they want to kill them all. This is a blood oath, and we're a part of it. We don't want to be a part of it, but this is what we're dealing with. And yes, I would knock that fucking smirk right off of his face if I was in his presence. I don't care how big he is. The one thing I always say when it comes to the blood rage that I have for Zionazis like this fuckhead, it isn't about me. It's about what they did to humanity. It's what they did to these children. And they're going to try to rewrite history right now. They're going to say that they're moral, that they were just. But what they're forgetting is that the genocide is not over. There is a famine that has set in on the overwhelming majority of the people that lived in Gaza. And they're coming for the people that are in the West Bank too. They want it all. They're not going to stop. Our country is drunk with power. And I'm going to do everything I can with this channel, with Jen to make sure that justice will be done for these crimes against humanity. That's our responsibility now.
We know what the situation on the ground. Peanut butter was told to doctors that it was a luxury and stolen out of their bags, Jonathan. For the last 2 years, we've been told, not even talking about the siege before where calories were counted, given to Palestinians before October 7th, but just since October 7th, we've been told that there's no siege, there's no famine, that aid is not being prevented from being delivered, right? Well, we just saw an entire naval fleet blockade, committed an act of piracy and kidnapping of 500 activists illegally in international waters that were trying to bring baby formula and food to starving Palestinians. We've seen a mercenary force unload a barrage of bullets and kill more Palestinians begging for bread than civilians died on October 7th. So while people like you, these hand-picked spokespeople with American or Swedish accents, come and speak to Western audiences and placate us and tell us lies, we know what Israeli society thinks and believes, Jonathan.
We see the news, and we see idiots like this guy.
See the news.
I want everyone to understand that this isn't an act. They're gleeful. In fact, he reminds me of Alex Karp of Palantir in so many ways. Ooh, how many kids did we kill again? Oh, God, it's turning me on. Oh, let's kill some more. I got to drink the Palestinian blood. I'm a vampire. It's how I live, how I survive. Do you notice they never come out during the day? It's only at night. One thinks maybe they really are the undead. Again, people that have that smugnerant look on their face, they need it fucking knocked off. And let me tell you, I could throw a hard punch and I got a pretty good jaw. So some of these guys, I would honestly just want to get into the fucking ring with. I swear to God. Yeah, you keep talking, lady. You're not doing nothing. We're with you, Abby, all the way.
News. I see Israeli Channel 12. I see the IDF reports. Of course I do. I see them coming out saying, guess what? Everyone left in Gaza City, the 250,000 people left, are going to be treated as terrorists and killed. John, you will be remembered no differently than the officers of the Third Reich.
Abby, out of interest, why would you think that anybody watching this, when they hear you tell a Jewish man that he's basically a Nazi?
Because he is a fucking Nazi, Piers. He is a Nazi. And you're a Nazi enabler if you think that you're going to be able to use that as a crutch. You can't. Let me tell you, I remember when Piers started to come around because he saw the writing on the wall. He's like, yeah, this is going to be really bad. You're not doing anybody any favors, Piers. Thank you for having Abby on, but you're coming to this fuckhead's defense, and you're sitting there and you're watching him grin with that stupid-ass look on his face like he doesn't know what they've been up to. And the best part about all of this, guys, now they're trying to justify the numbers. They're saying, we didn't kill 750,000. We killed about 180,000. So that doesn't make it so bad, now does it? And you see it in social media conversation. You see it all. The inhumanity is beyond nauseating. And gives a fuck. It's a slogan. And if you think, Adam Purser, that we are not headed for revolution in this country, wake the fuck up, kid, because that's where we are. There is no way out of this besides revolution. That's where we're going. Now, it doesn't have to be a violent revolution. But it's going to happen. We are going to have a revolution in this country. You have federally elected representatives, again, who trade on inside information every fucking day. And this is the only developed country on earth that doesn't have a healthcare program, who doesn't have any type of an advanced education program for people who want to learn a trade. We have poisoned water, unhealthy air, endless war, and a planet that's on fire. and you have a problem with this slogan, okay, fine. As Sean Hammer would say, revolution now, because it's getting old. The only way out of this, guys like him are not going to stop. This is not going to be the end of this genocide, the end of this violence. It's just entering a new phase. And we have to be ready.
The grandchild of a Holocaust survivor, by the way, whose grandfather's family was murdered.
That is a winning point to make.
If you want to not be compared to Nazis, stop acting like Nazis. It's very simple.
He's not going to stop acting like a Nazi. But the beautiful thing about it, ladies and gentlemen, which is what I've been trying to share and espouse to all of you for so very, very long, the heart of all of this rests right here in the United States. We are the lifeblood that allows sick, fucking, demented mass murderers like Jonathan to continue to get away with what they're getting away with. But if we collectively work together in this country and recognize that the only way we're getting out of this is if we collectively work together to sever the ties of this unholy alliance with this genocidal nation. Or as the great senator from Vermont once said, when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Now, I wish the Bernie Sanders of 10 years ago still existed, but he doesn't. So it's up to us. Well, it's up to all of us. He always said, not me, us. So it's true. It's not one person. I'm one voice. Jen's one voice. Omar Badar's one voice. Abby Martin's one voice. We all have a role to play here. And that role is not to let these sons of bitches get away with this. Because that's what they're going to try to do. Ashkenazis, that's a very appropriate term, Rupert. You cannot be blind to what's going on here. There isn't a soft landing exit out of this situation. And there's never going to be. You are not entitled. This is also part of the reason why I go after liberals as hard as I do, because the big difference between what I consider to be the libertarian side of politics, the right side of politics, versus, I wouldn't even necessarily say the left side, because the left side, the true progressive left, the economic progressive left, is revolutionary in their own right as well. It's the liberal class. It's the comfortable liberal class. They don't want to fight. They just want a soft landing. They don't want discomfort. But there is no way out of this without discomfort. You are not entitled to be comfortable. Nobody is. And if you've never lived hard in your life, well, get ready. You're going to need to learn it because it's going to happen. I have lived hard for several years. I know what it's like to actually have to fight for survival. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't, and that's okay. You'll learn, just as I did. I know it's not what you want, but it's what you're going to get. We have to stop pretending that we can Band-Aid the shit out of this. We needed to stop pretending that we could Band-Aid this decades ago. But now it's in our face, and it's everywhere. And now we see it for what it is. Do you really think people are going to go back to sleep? I don't. And I know I'm not. So let's not go back to sleep. Let's stay awake and let's fight together to make sure that we will get where we need to go. And as it stands right now, because again, we have a great crowd here already. Really great crowd, big crowd, tremendous crowd. We have over 512 people watching. That's great. It's a great start to the evening, but we're just getting cooking. And I want to make sure that everybody who is here this evening is actually smashing that like button, because if you don't, how else are more people going to see it? So that's important. Right now, we have 512 watching, but only 277 of you have hit that like button. So do as our trusty comrade Teresa did, smash that like button, share the stream if you can. We've got a lot more interesting and fun topics to talk about this evening. We know you guys are going to enjoy it. We are going to get to Andrew Kolvet shortly. We're also going to get to Nick Fuentes and Dave Smith, and of course, Candace Owens. So, with that said, if you guys are here and you're enjoying it so far, make sure you also consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel as we close in on incredibly 75,000 subscribers. Right now, I am going to do a double check, discount double check on our current subscriber count. As it stands right now, we are sitting at 70. Where are we? Come on. Load up. Taking a little bit of a time, but 73,580. So we are climbing that ladder. And we hope you guys will help push this out even further so that we can get to 75,000 subscribers. We know the ultimate goal is 100,000. Jen has this idea in her mind that we're somehow going to get there before the year is out. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying let's temper our expectations. But I did say to Jen, and I said this a few weeks ago before this new surge ultimately came about for our channel. And I did say, let's get to 75,000 before the end of the year. Well, we might get to 75,000 by the end of next week. That's incredible. So let's keep the pedal to the metal and see if we can get there. And for our super chatters already here, Jim Talib, thank you so much. Or Talib, I'm not sure how to say it, but we'll say Jim Talib. Thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. Really appreciate your support. This one's an even harder one to say, but I'm going to say Egregium. Egregium Disingenium. I hope I got that right. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Libertarian Social Democrat, thank you so much for the $4.99. Alex Karp is a house slave that will lock up his own black people just for $1 and his Zio slave masters. Look, there's a lot of things you could say about Alex Karp. One thing you can definitely say about him is that he's a psychopath and gleefully enjoys watching innocent Palestinians get killed, including the lady who showed up at one of his speaking engagements at the 92nd Y on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And again, he was moving in a seat. He was getting all hot and bothered, like, oh, I killed your family? Oh, yeah, that's great. Who else can I get? Anybody else here's family I killed? Yeah, some people enjoy that stuff. Kind of like Jared Kushner with his pencil neck. Like I said, always be mindful of those bureaucrats, the ones who are extremely gleeful about the violence that the havoc that they can wreak on innocent people. Trust me, they enjoy it. It's like being a supervillain. A lot of people want to be the superhero. There's a lot of people who want to be the supervillain. That's life. JG 1982 with the $5. You can't debate with Hitler. That remains true today. You must fight back in various ways. I agree. There isn't one specific way to fight back, but there is a way where they're all similar in scope and nature. Sharpen our tools. That's our job. Laug 66 with the £5. Always a pleasure. TikTok, I understand, but I don't understand why Ellison bought CBS. Are not all TV networks already extreme pro-Israel? Good question. I've said this before. I'll say it again. You can never be pro-Israel enough. There is no such thing. Being pro-Israel is a prerequisite with the powers that be. And if you slip in any way, well, you will be made an example of. That's how this works. Alex Got Mittens, thank you for the $2. You tell it, Peter. Hey, I'm trying to tell it, brother. I'm doing the best I can. But it does appear that we are doing pretty good right now. So we have each and every one of you to thank for that amazing support. Mark J with the $3, a first-rate channel for justice. Thank you. Thank you for always being here to support our channel, Mark. That is how we are able to grow. Every time you chip in, another person sees it. Another person might be inspired to do the same and help us continue to grow. Fawaz Arnaut, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here, brother. And Teresa, as if she could ever be outdone, but can't. Sorry, JG. Although maybe you want to compete, you never know. Thank you so much for gifting the 5 Revolutionary Change memberships. This is going to get a whole new slate of individuals to support our channel and continue to get the word out there. So thank you very much for doing that as well. It is very much appreciated. You guys are obviously doing an amazing job of supporting the channel already this evening. We are just getting underway. But again, like I said, if you are so inclined, make sure you go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. Again, for $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. For whatever reason, the numbers don't necessarily matter, because it does seem that a lot of people who follow this channel do not, under any circumstances, feel, egregium disingenuum. I think I got it. Thank you very much for the $5. As I was saying, and we're up to 541 now, so we're getting up there, guys. Let's see if we get to 600 this evening. I don't want to be greedy. I'm being realistic. I'm tempering my expectations. But like I said, we've got a lot to cover here. So we do want to make sure that we get as much on the board as we can. And so I do want to make sure that everybody understands that when you're a part of this channel, when you're watching what we're watching, when we're doing what we're doing, we all have a job. We all have a responsibility. This is an active participant channel. That's what it's supposed to be. We want to have people that are here that understand that there is a mission that we are on, that we're trying to fight right now. And we cannot do this alone. I would think that anybody who's been watching us knows that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's not going to be easy. I have said, and we have said, it's not going to be a case where we're going to be able to have these factions, if you will, that are going to be split along different ideological lines. There's going to be different leaders that are going to emerge and different groups that are going to have to come together that would otherwise not think otherwise that they are going to do that. And I bring this up for a very specific reason. There will be differences amongst a lot of people, but you got to put them aside. We must put them aside. If we do not, we are no better. And we will never solve this problem. Corn, don't spam. Appreciate you, but don't spam. And I want everyone to understand that there isn't this one ideological way of doing it. There just isn't. I welcome everybody to the fold who wants to be a part of it. Now, if you were to ask me 2.5 years ago what I thought of Candace Owens, I would have said she's a really solid politico in the sense that she definitely talks a good game. Very stark differences on a number of key issues. Opportunistic in several ways. When you build networks and platforms this large, it's going to happen. But she has been relentless about this issue, about getting this relationship between us and Israel severed. She made a really great point that I want to highlight here, that I want you guys to see.
Just give up. It's going to come out. Whatever it is going to come out. You would have to, and I wouldn't put it past you, you'd have to get rid of all of us. You've got like 7 billion people you've got to ethnically cleanse right now if you want us to just forget about the Charlie Kirk story. It's no one's forgetting it, okay?
And she's absolutely right. When it comes to the Charlie Kirk story, which is one of several that they are trying to sweep under the rug right now, she is 1,000% correct that it's not going to go away. And while you can knock off a few voices here and there, you can't get everybody. And that is why collectively, if we work together, we can make this happen. And I am also noticing, as I'm sure many of you have noticed as well, it is much easier to coalesce with people who identify as libertarian or right politically, or both, kind of the same thing. versus people who are on the left, progressive left. They are still of this mind that we have to separate based on small ideological circumstances because that is what they feel is defining them right now. I do not understand for the life of me if anybody is on board with the revolutionary situation that we're faced with right now. Yes, a lot of problems with somebody like Charlie Kirk, but it's not about Charlie per se. It's about what he represented. It's about the movement that he represented that was being cultivated for the empire. And the second that person gets out of line, well, somebody of that magnitude is going to be removed. Because it wasn't just Charlie. There were several others. But Candace is absolutely right about this. So we will continue.
Not the ballistics guys on YouTube that we're all listening to. And no one's gonna let this one go because, and by the way, that's your fault. I don't know whose sadistic idea it was to make this a public execution, but let me tell you where you made the mistake, okay? In 1963, when JFK was shot, people didn't watch it on TikTok. People mostly read about it, and then the feds lied about it, and they heard about it. But to be able to have us watch that live around the world, you traumatized all of us. And not in the way that you meant to. You meant to traumatize us, and maybe then make us fearful and scared. And yeah, that happened. Then you made us really angry that corruption is allowed to be like this, just so blatant and so in our face, looking at us as if we're nothing. And what are you going to do about it? That's the attitude. What are you going to do about it? You wanted to traumatize us and then to, on a dime, flip and look us in the face and go, how dare you ask questions? People are grieving. Yeah, we're grieving because you assassinated Charlie Kirk in front of the entire world.
You know, I don't want to pick on Erica Kirk because I think she's just playing a role. But you would think somebody like Erica Kirk would be acting the way that Candace is acting right now. Instead, what did she do? She took a video of her crying over the lifeless body in a casket of Charlie. Maybe demanding an autopsy might have been a good idea. Just a thought. And now the person who's really fighting for justice, and yes, Candace is fighting for justice for Charlie, and I understand that. But she's also fighting for justice for this cause that we're fighting for, which is to sever this relationship once and for all.
If you had pretended he slipped and fell on some ice in the winter, maybe you wouldn't have this response. But you got our attention because you went after our attention. You wanted this for whatever sadistic reason. You wanted this to be a public execution, and that disturbs me.
It should disturb everybody. But remember, it was deliberately made a public execution. That's what it was supposed to be. They wanted it done in public. If they wanted it done in private, they would have, trust me, if they wanted to make it private, it would have been private. Slipped and fell on a banana peel and fell down 2 flights of stairs and broke his neck. No, we're going to do it in public. We are going to make it graphic. And we're going to send a signal to everybody that, yeah, don't get out of line, or you might end up like this. Netanyahu going on TV saying, it is a lie. It is a lie. I did not kill Charlie Kirk. Have I mentioned before that I did not kill Charlie Kirk? I did not kill Charlie Kirk. He did it on like 3 or 4 occasions. This is outrageous that you would suggest that I would kill Charlie Kirk. I'm starting to think maybe he might have had something to do with it. Just a chance.
So you get what you get, okay? This is the internet generation. You get TikTokers that are asking questions. You get our military guys. You get our ballistic boys. You get the TikTok medium psychic ladies. You get everybody. All of us are here, okay? It's like a high school class. You got all different types of characters here, but we're running this, okay? We're running this. And we're not going to be nice to any substitute teachers that you try to throw in there and try to calm down. Nope, we're not doing that, okay? We're not calming down. We're pretty upset, and we're going to stay upset.
You tell it, sister. And she's right. We are going to keep fighting. And the reason we're going to keep fighting, and the reason I played this clip first, is because I want everyone to be clear that Candace is on a mission right now. She is on a mission to use all of her platform in the same vein that Tucker Carlson is doing. And he is fighting, just as she is, to bring justice to this. Not just, again, we were heading in this direction already, but Charlie Kirk's assassination has sent it into overdrive. And now Candace is going to talk about what she discovered in terms of the conversation that was happening as it relates to Charlie Kirk and this private chat that he was in just 2 days before his assassination.
With Israel bullying him, and I am now going to present you proof of what I am saying. This is an actual group chat, which happened 2 days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. There were 9 people in total on this chat, including Charlie and Rob McCoy. I'm going to protect the names of the other 7 for now. To be clear, I might actually release a name every day this week, but I want to show you this because suffice it to say, Rob McCoy was on this text thread, and I think it helps contextualize him as a person, in my view, that he would attack me for telling the truth about the pressure that he was facing. Take a look. So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh.
You know, I've said to Jen and I said to a few others that I think that with Tucker in particular, it's on a personal level with Milikowski Netanyahu. He doesn't like him personally. And so he does not hesitate to call him what he is, which is a mass murderer. In addition, Candace, who was a part of a pro-Israel front NGO, which is the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. And she was confident enough in her abilities that she could venture out on her own without their backing and do it herself. And you know what? She bet on herself and she won. She maintained the relationship that she did with Charlie Kirk, but you have to believe, guys, that when Candace flipped on Daily Wire, which was about 6 months into the genocide, that there was already conversations with Charlie from the powers that be to say, you're going to have to back away from your relationship with Candace Owens. And he said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to try to show her that the relationship is still possible with Israel. But as time went on, as you can see, he learned very quickly that that is not the case. It is not a salvageable relationship. It is a relationship that must be destroyed. Now, I don't think he came to it all that quickly. But as you can see here, there are a lot of different examples of bribery that one will employ in order to keep people in line. Charlie's a prime example of just that, guys. $2 million in annual contribution. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to say no to. But remember, the difference with somebody like Charlie versus a lot of others, Charlie was taking that Zion money for a long time. And he decided not to take it anymore. There are no coincidences, ladies and gentlemen. Everything happens for a reason, intentional or not.
Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause.
Now, let's be very clear. We've been saying this for a while. This is a class war, nothing more. When people equate Judaism to Zionism, you are playing right into their hands, which is what they want you to do. The wealthy Jews, in particular, want to speak for all Jews, regardless of what their profession is. I know all of you assume that they're all in banking, but that's not true. They're also doctors and lawyers and accountants, and you get the idea. The point is, this is not a Jewish thing. This is a Zionist Jewish thing, and it's a big fucking problem. And there's only so many of them that actually control the levers of power, but they don't have a flock. Their flock's not big. The big flock are the Christian Zionists. They're in the millions upon millions in this country, and they all stem from Protestant evangelism. That's where they come from. John Hager, Pat Robertson, Joel Osteen. You get the idea. But the whole preaching therein about these individuals, they're the ones who provide the sheep. And as stereotypical as it may be, the Jewish Zionists provide the money. And that's where this unholy alliance comes into play. The Jewish Zionists, the billionaire class that are heavily funding Turning Point USA, they are providing that money to Charlie Kirk to make sure that the Christian Zionists don't get out of line, that they stay on the reservation, no matter how bad this looks, no matter how un-Christ-like our behavior may appear to be. That's how this has worked. And now what you're seeing is that he didn't want to play that game anymore. Whether it was truly because of his Christian consciousness that woke him up, or because he just felt that he could do it without their help, whatever the reasoning is, he bet on red and it landed on black. And that's why he's dead.
And somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term. In my opinion, like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread. I'm not going to reveal the names of the other 7. Actually, you know what? I disagree with myself 4 seconds ago. Let's just throw in Josh Hammer for fun.
Now, for those of you who are familiar with the name Josh Hammer, and if he rings a bell, one of the first viral clips that we did post Charlie's assassination that I always believed without question was one of the last straws when they decided he had to go, was at the last Turning Point USA get-together, the last conference that they held. They warned him not to have Dave Smith as one of the speakers. He had him anyway. And who did he debate on stage? Josh Hammer. The pieces fit too conveniently at this point. I'm not saying who did it. I'm just telling you who did it.
He's on this chat, okay? So what are we to make of that? Okay, now that I'm showing you this and showing to you that the conversations were real, I want you to reflect, and it took me a lot of patience to allow the lies that were being woven and the misrepresentations of people that were pretending that I was just, high on lying about Charlie and the pressure he was under, the attacks that not just me, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly faced for trying to stand up and tell the truth about what Charlie was actually going through. Why are you hearing it, though, from me and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly? Isn't that weird? You got people that are hosting a show. Have they, in like one honorable thing, come out and said, like, you know what? F a couple of these donors who made his life a living hell in the last couple of weeks. Why haven't they done that?
one thing you have to remember about these operations, as I pointed out when I went to one of the Turning Point USA events in Tampa, Florida, these are multi-million-dollar production endeavors. It's no different than going to an RNC convention or a DNC convention. The whole pomp and circumstance, the TV cameras, the masterminds. On the commercial real estate side, I've been to a few of these events. They're not cheap. They're rallying cries. Like-minded individuals getting together to Talking Points USA, not turning points. The points have turned in the not so favorable direction. But have no illusions. Those events are not being paid for out of Charlie's pockets. They're also not being paid for by $25 a pop donors. They're being paid for by multi-millionaire, if not outright billionaire contributors. And as it turns out, several of those donors were very pro-Israel Zionist genociders, as we are now seeing. He's said a few things over the past several months. Probably got him into a lot of trouble. They warned him. Jen has pointed out, I've pointed it out, Charlie Kirk was groomed in more ways than one from the time he was a teenager. Powers that be saw something in him. They knew they could use him to rally the troops. Remember, nothing lasts forever. You have to keep things moving because there are generational shifts, hence generational change. You're noticing a lot of people that are passing away right now. Diane Keaton just passed away earlier this afternoon. And she was only 79. She wasn't even that old. But there are these generational shifts that happen constantly. It happens every 30 years. In grand scheme of things, it's not that, it happens fairly often enough where you see it at least twice, if not 3 times in your lifetime. And it's happening right now. As a result, they have to prepare for the future. And they have to make sure that they have servants, lapdogs, trainees that are going to carry on the legacy and carry on the empire. Charlie was going to carry on the empire until he wasn't. He decided to get his mind right in the right way, and the powers that be decided, no, you're not. And when he defied them and said that, yes, I will, well, they had to make an example of him. Why? Because he's not the only one. If he was all by himself, they might have figured out a way to deal with him. But there's a lot of powerful voices out there that are also speaking out against the genocidal state, and Candace Owens is one of them. The shot across the bow was to tell her, you better watch your step, or you might be next. Well, as we have pointed out multiple times over the past 6 months, it's a month, Candace is basically underground. She's probably in a compound. So wherever she is, she's not going out in public. And if she does, she probably has to go everywhere with bomb-sniffing dogs and multiple security detail. Now, she's got enough money where she can manage to do that. So does Tucker Carlson. But the average person doesn't. I don't. I've already had my first run-in with the law because of the fact that somebody didn't like what I was saying about their genocidal approach to doing business at a synagogue in New York City. And that's just the start. It's only going to get worse. I'm prepared for it. I understand what I'm doing right now. I know it's dangerous. But for God's sake, somebody's got to fucking do it. Candace can't do it alone. Under normal circumstances, yeah, we would probably have a lot of differences and a number of key issues that would probably separate us politically. But you know what? This is the issue of our time. This connects all the pieces. All of it. You want to know why things are getting so bad here on the home front? Because the very people that have been funding and pushing this endeavor in Gaza and in the Middle East and attempting to start World War III with Iran as we speak. Israel is bombing Lebanon as we speak. Nice ceasefire they put together. Let me tell you, we cannot let up. We are never going to get them to admit that they murdered Charlie Kirk, but we can convince the masses that they did. And their credibility is bon voyage after that. It already is, but we want it to happen a lot faster. So that's our job.
There's also a rabbi in that chat. Like, why hasn't anybody made that move to at least say, to vindicate what I have been saying about what he was going through? That registers to me as very suspicious. I'm going to frankly say that. It's suspicious to me. It makes me think that in the same way that Charlie was being pressured by money, that you might be now run by that same money, that those same donors might be running you.
They are. The same donors are running you. And there is why they are convinced that those that they expect to actually back off are not going to back off. It's also very explanatory when we look at others. I know that they're low-hanging fruit, and we can take pot shots at them left and right. But it's those Zio scum that are picking off $7,000 a post. Now, granted, I'm sure that whatever the post is, it has to be constructed in a certain way. It's not just any post. It's got to be Zio-approved, talking point-specific post. And then you get the money. That's how it works. We've got 600, and we had the sign of the devil. We had 666 watching. Now we're at 662. If you haven't hit that like button, only 442 of you have. Please smash it if you could. Let's see if we could get to 700 live stream viewers tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're only 38 away. There's no reason we can't get there. A few extra likes are going to go a long way to making this happen. And why, one would ask, would this be such a big deal? There's many a reason why. But I also think that the Zion Nazis overthink their situation in the worst kind of ways. They're not that smart. And that's what I want to emphasize to people. They think that by committing the violence that they've committed, that by some miracle, everyone is all of a sudden going to forget about everything that's happened. Everyone is going to get in line, and people are going to stop asking questions, and that they will prevent the change that is inevitably coming in the future. They're going to find out very quickly that that is simply not the case. Those changes are already here. And now, because of what they did specifically to Charlie, they didn't stop it. They just accelerated it to a level that now they're not going to be able to control. And again, I will reference our friend Rothbone, who has a great channel, and he said, and I quote, they're just going through a speed run at this point to their demise. And I believe that. And the reason I believe that is because there was a lot of these, whether they're conservative or not, I'm not sure, but I believe that Glenn Beck was part of a Turning Point USA event that was just hosted at a university. I'm not sure which, but this was from Breezy Politics. This was just the other day. And these are the responses that these young, impressionable, conservative, but impressionable kids are saying about the state of Israel, the very flock that these Zionist psychopaths have depended on for multiple generations. And they're losing them in a big way. This is with Glenn Beck. Mr. I Love Israel himself.
Has an overwhelming lobby over the United States government, and we have unconditionally supported them. We have fought their wars in the Middle East. Bibi Netanyahu came to our Congress in the 90s, told us a list of countries that we need to take out. Some were Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya, etc. Through those wars, we have lost trillions of dollars. We have lost American servicemen.
We're lobbying everybody else, and they will.
No one's clapping. No one's clapping for your friends.
It is. It's an easy question. Now, I understand that this kid just said that Charlie Kirk was America first. Now, he was America first and Israel second. Now, maybe he was switching, but there's also that slight show of the indoctrination that comes with the rhetoric that they get accustomed to hearing. But Glenn Beck, hey, I don't know who he thought he was right. I don't know what crowd he thought he was going to, but he walked into the wrong crowd if he thought he was going to avoid talking about Israel.
Charlie was starting to notice about the Israel lobby.
Could I answer my question? Could I answer the question, please?
You're talking about one thing they don't teach in school? They don't teach about the USS Liberty.
Now, we have been desperately trying to get on one of the surviving members of the USS Liberty. We have not fully covered the topic as of yet because I wanted to bring someone who was actually there to talk about it. We have discussed it with Ken McCarthy, who wrote a great book, JFK and RFK versus the Israel lobby. JFK and RFK's secret battle against Zionist extremism. That's the name of the book. And a great book. But he's right. The USS Liberty is the canary in the coal mine. Oh my God, Marvin, are you kidding me? I wasn't going to say his name. Phil Turney is the guy that we were trying to get onto he was scheduled to be on our podcast about a week and a half ago. And we tried to get a hold of him, but we didn't hear from him. He was scheduled to come on. So now you guys know. Well, can somebody please verify that? Don't think either he did or he didn't. No, he's not the only survivor, but there's not many that are still left. He was 80 years old. Somebody please verify that if Phil actually did pass away. But yes, I would think that if he did, that would have been a much bigger story. Yeah, somebody please look into this. I can't do this right now, but if somebody could verify it, please, we'll continue the clip.
Where Israel literally came, blew up an American ship because they want us to get in their war with Egypt, and they don't teach that in school. I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question.
I have a question. Why is there this societal taboo around criticisms of Israel? For example, AIPAC doesn't have to register as a foreign lobby, but like the Australia lobby does. And it just
that should be changed. That should be corrected. Look, I am not going to say Israel should have any special privileges. None.
Good. That's good, Glenn. That's probably not something you would have said even 6 months ago. But you know what? You got to take the wins where you can get them. There's not a lot of them out there. So be appreciative if even somebody like Glenn Beck, who's you know what, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to say I don't really care for Glenn Beck. I don't know really anybody who does. He's way too chummy with, people like Ben Shapiro. And that is, without question, one of the hallmarks of the shift. Because if Glenn Beck's talking like that, that's a sign. Guys, we're at 698. If you haven't smashed that like button, please make sure you do. We're trying to get over the 700 mark. I think we can do it. We know that you guys are obviously here and you're enjoying. We just went back down to 687. You guys are killing me. We need to make sure that the like button is smashed, or that way. I keep looking at myself and I didn't realize I'm like a mirror. So when I point that way thinking that I'm pointing at it. I'm in the other direction. It's actually that way. Very interesting how live streaming works, isn't it? But yes, the change is here, and it's happening. It's happening right now. And I mention this because I told you guys that I wanted to do a deep dive into a person that I believe personally had a hand in whatever happened to Charlie. I don't know how thoroughly involved he was, but I know something isn't adding up. One of the people in that text thread that Candace was just referring to is the person who Jen refers to as the LBJ of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Who stood to benefit the most from his demise? Well, Andrew Kolvet is one of those people. And so we're going to kick this off specifically with his response. His response to Candace Owens saying that Charlie Kirk had officially shifted on Israel. And I've got the receipts to prove it. And she did prove it. But here's what he had to say.
I want to take the start of this show to address some of the things that have been going around on public, namely about a group text chain that has been made known and released by Candace Owens. And I just want to address it head on because, that was a screen grab that I had shared with people. So it is authentic. And I want to go into it because I actually am really excited that the truth is out there.
Oh, you're excited? Really? I would think that somebody like you, if you actually had these receipts and did know that this in fact was true regarding Charlie's shift on Israel, that you probably would have used, let's face it, you're desperately trying to keep the Turning Point USA operation afloat. Why wouldn't you get out ahead of Candace on this issue? Why would you have allowed her to basically own your ass and make you look like the fool that you are? I'm excited about what? How about instead you could have just said, I have to be honest, guys. I knew about this and I should have been more forthcoming about it. But no, you can't even do damage control well. You just look like a very guilty person, of which I'm sure you are. You had something to do with this. I don't doubt it for 1 second. We'll keep going, but there's going to be more to this, guys, so buckle up.
I first want to say the reason I didn't share that screen grab publicly is because it was a private exchange, and I felt like it didn't necessarily comport with things that were already public. I wanted to not betray my friend's trust in that.
Okay, you didn't want to betray your friend's trust, but why do I have the feeling that if it was a text exchange of you and others, Josh Hammer, any of these billionaire donors, Candace Owens, if this was a text exchange about Charlie's ever-dying love for the genocidal fake state of Israel, that you would have displayed that within hours of Charlie's assassination. You got your directive, and you went right along with it. So this is very perplexing. I would almost suggest that it's a cover-up, and you just got exposed. But there is more to what this very shady character has been doing to prevent any additional information coming out. It's the things that he said. It's his look. It's his energy. It's all there. Like I said, I can't prove, I don't have evidence that Andrew is responsible for Charlie's demise. But my goodness, if that man ain't fucking guilty of something that had to do with Charlie's assassination, I don't know what guilt looks like. Because he's got it draped all over his face.
But I did share it with some people in government because It happened really quick. It was, it took 33 hours for authorities to get their suspect. And in those first moments, we wanted no stone unturned. We wanted to leave nothing unturned. So I shared it with a few people. Don't know where it went from there, apparently. But here we are. So one of the reasons, Blake, that I'm glad to have this now public, it was not mine to share publicly, but one of the criticisms we've received is that we don't care. We're not investigating every lead. We're not looking under every stone. And that somehow we're just sweeping things under the rug. And when I say that we want justice for Charlie more than anybody else, I really mean it, and no stone unturned.
Well, again, I would think that if you truly cared about whether or not your friend was murdered in the fashion that you're claiming that he was murdered in, you would be digging a little deeper now, wouldn't you? But nope, can't do that. And as I said, this is the thing about Erica Kirk that truly disturbs me. Now, I don't want to take this any further than it needs to because I know people like to do the gossip stuff. I have no interest in that. But is it possible that maybe Andrew and Erica were a little more friendly than one would normally expect when it's a business relationship? What I will say is that when she first hosted Turning Point USA and Andrew introduced her in the fashion that he did, it really left me scratching my head thinking, okay, there's something a little too familiar amongst these two. It just didn't feel kosher. There is something about the way he talks. There is something about the way he walks. There is something about the way he says things that would leave one asking themselves, is this guy telling us everything that he knows? I don't think so. I think he's hiding stuff. Now, do I have proof that he's hiding stuff? I am going to play you guys a clip from a channel that I am not too familiar with, but was given this information from because Andrew, who has been Charlie's second in command at Turning Point USA for years, has an interesting background. I was given some inside baseball information from a friend of the show, won't say who, but the information that was provided to me has to do with some specifics pertaining to where he's from. He's apparently a fifth-generation Nevada rancher, or that's his family. There are no details to verify that. Doesn't say where he went to college, but that he spent time in London and Kenya. He has a Hollywood background and is running the PR for this major conservative media conglomerate. There's a lot of questions unanswered about how this guy got where he got. But as a lot of you in the chat have suggested, he does appear to be from Central Casting, which is certainly very possible. Now it's starting to look like maybe he got put there, and that's why this is happening. So, I believe this is MK Ultra Truth. That is the name of the channel. Here's some interesting information about Andrew Kolvet.
Barrel headlong into a permanent surveillance state in the United States. Something disturbing has come to light surrounding the Charlie Kirk memorial. Days before that event, Israel reportedly signed a $4 million contract with a California firm called Show Faith by Works. Now, according to new reporting by investigative journalist Brian Ferentz, the same company was behind what they described as the largest Christian geofencing campaign in U.S. history.
So what MJ Truth Ultra, I said it backwards, my apologies, but what MJ Truth Ultra is sharing here which is very important, is that the entire revival, if you will, of the people that showed up in Glendale, Arizona for Charlie's memorial were all geofenced. Do you know who did it? Palantir. But there's more to it.
After the memorial, even Turning Point's Andrew Kolvet openly admitted this on the Jesse Waters show, that their tech partners, had tracked more than 270,000 phones in and around the stadium. Watch.
Break a little bit of news on your program, Jesse. Our partners that do sort of geotagging with devices, they told us that they tracked over 277,000 devices in the vicinity of State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona.
It's almost like he's saying it gleefully. Can you believe that we tracked over 250,000 people's phones in the same area? We geofenced all of them. It's like he's proud of it. We have no privacy. In fact, I know anything I'm saying is being recorded right now, probably going right to the NSA. Hi, guys. Hope you're doing okay. I haven't broken any laws today, just so you know. I can't speak for all days, but today I've been a good boy. But that is not something to brag about. That's something, I'm not sure how the hell you sell it, but the way he's trying to sell it is to suggest, can you believe how many people we have under surveillance right now? And it's all for Israel. Ain't that something? You know, Charlie wouldn't have agreed to that, but I did. Aren't I a good boy? Yeah, you're very good, Andrew. You're very good.
277,000. So that just gives you an idea of the scale of humanity out there. But
yeah, but it also gives you the scale of something darker. Like, how do you know that number? Did these people consent to that?
I think he brings up an excellent point. How would Andrew Kolvet, producer of Turning Point USA, know how many people that showed up at Charlie Kirk's memorial were geofenced? Thank you very much, Eric. And this gives me an opportunity, guys. Thank you for the reminder, since I haven't done it yet. Guys, we have over 700 people watching right now. But if you haven't subscribed to Revolutionary Change on Rumble, make sure that you do. Because if we ever get the boot from Google and we don't have anywhere else to go, we're going to have to go over to Rumble. So make sure, Revolutionary Change on Rumble. Make sure that if you guys can go over there and subscribe right now, that would be tremendously appreciated. We are live streaming over at Rumble right now as we speak. But he brings up an excellent point. How the hell would Andrew Kolvet know any of this? Who the fuck is he? Again, central casting. Working for the Zionist state. Well, I guess we're double fucked anyway, so might as well see if they're paying attention on both spots. But nevertheless, Andrew Kolvet, in the grand scheme of things, is a nobody. He is a grunt. And he comes off like a lying scumbag when he opens his mouth. And I'm going to remind you people, once we finish this clip, of who Andrew Kolvet was and why he was brought to our attention in the first place.
So you understand, people who came to the event to mourn Charlie Kirk were digitally tagged under the label of outreach. I'm going to reach out to these people afterwards. And at the same time, reports suggest that Charlie had rejected an enormous financial offer connected to foreign interests, sparking internal turmoil at Turning Points USA.
And he's right. That is what happened. But if you guys do not remember who Andrew Kolvet is, I'm going to remind you right now, this is how I knew of him. This is how Jen knew of him. Andrew Kolvet is the person who put out the lengthy X post talking about how the bullet that apparently assassinated Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk's neck stopped the bullet. It was a miracle. It was an incredible moment that even in death, Charlie Kirk saved so many innocent lives. Now, as soon as a person like that starts spewing that bullshit, I am highly suspicious that person probably has more going on than what meets the eye. And sure enough, as it turns out, he actually does. This is something that I don't think a lot of you probably remember or even saw, but this is from the Charlie Kirk assassination.
I was standing from probably the third row in the bottom. I heard the shot ring out. I looked to my left, and then I looked over to my right. I saw him slump over in his chair forward. He slumped over. He had blood coming from the left side of his neck, down his shirt.
Now, I know you can't see his face, and that's intentional, plus the hat. Would you care to guess who that is? You can't talk about this. That's Andrew Kolvet. I didn't know that. Somebody decided to share it with me and point it out, say, that's Andrew Kolvet, right? And I thought, why would Andrew Kolvet be trying to stop an eyewitness to Charlie Kirk's assassination from talking? And the only reason that he would be doing that is if he's part of a cover-up. There is no other reason. He's not law enforcement of any capacity. He is the person who is next in line if something happened to Charlie Kirk. You don't think it's possible that some spook wasn't talking to him on behalf of Israel, saying, just want you to know, kind of losing Charlie here. But we haven't lost you, right? No, we haven't lost you? Okay. That's good. Because guess what? There may be an opportunity coming for you. And you got a role to play, you understand? We're not going to ask you to do too much, but you're going to have to do a couple of very important things for us. That is the great question. Well, it's Andrew, not Andre. But now you're finding out. Now you're all finding out who this guy is. Now, like I said, I don't know what he did, but I know whatever he did, it's bad. He is knee-deep in whatever this is. Whatever this is, he's involved. And he's showing it right now. You bet your fucking ass it's him, because I've seen the screen captures of the person. This is Andrew Kolvet. The second he put out that X post saying that it was a miracle that Charlie's neck saved others from being killed, that was it. I didn't need to hear anything else. And listen, Andrew was smart enough not to show his face directly into the camera. Let's finish it out.
And he slumped over and he was carried off. Get off me! Get off me!
Emotions are running high right now.
Emotions are running high right now. Somebody was smart enough to, again, my guess, this is my guess, and we don't know how long after the assassination, but we'll assume it's within, we'll say 20, 30 minutes. We'll say it's within a specific amount of time where, you could tell that not everybody's running around right now. The scene was secured, if you will, but people are still on edge. Remember, what ends up happening, a lot of these events, especially this particular event that Charlie had hosted at Utah Valley State University. As I mentioned, I was at one of the Turning Point USA events in Tampa Bay. And what I remember most about there is that there was specifically a media section, a section specifically meant for the larger content creators. They had their own booths. They had their places to sit down. This is where people would communicate. If you want to get on TV, you want to share your thoughts about the event, hey, this is a great opportunity. So you go here. This is what we do. My guess is that whoever was interviewing this young man was probably somebody that Andrew recognized, and he had to shut it down immediately. Said, oh, no, you're not talking to anybody. You're going to keep your mouth shut, and this is not getting out. Now, I'm sure he's not the only person that was getting a little handsy with certain people who wanted to get in front of a camera and talk about what was going on. But like I said, this is serious. And he sure looked like him. And then I saw a couple of shot cutaways. As I said, whatever this is, whatever happened, I'm not saying that Andrew did it. What I am saying, okay, Charlie, you know what? If they just happen to look very similar to each other, whoever Cooper Brown is, now we're going to have to go after him and find out who the fuck he is. Does anybody in the chat know who Cooper Brown is? Because I don't follow Turning Point USA. I'm following Andrew Kolvet. So if anybody has some insight onto who this Cooper Brown is, they're all working in concert. This is what happens. When everyone is running in all these directions, everyone already knew what to do. Just as Jen pointed out, if you watch the moment when Kirk was killed, you had a guy that flew across the table. He grabbed something and handed it to somebody else in a matter of seconds. When people, the only reason that you ever saw what happened is because somebody with amateur video actually captured it when it happened. That's it. That's the only reason. And they were smart enough to say, ooh, I got to see something that I probably shouldn't have seen. And maybe it would be wise of me to get somebody to put it out there anonymously. Because if anybody traces it back to me, interesting. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Now we're going to have to look into Cooper Brown. He's next. The simplest explanation is often the right one. If things didn't make sense, then something was afoot. This is exactly why I have not brought up the alleged patsy. This is what matters. This is the real story. And as we know, there are always bit players that are willing to be involved, and they're willing to do it for money. Think about how many scum suckers out there right now are taking $7,000 a pop to make posts on Israel's behalf. And this is just posts, acting like jackasses. Could you imagine how much you could have been offered to get in on what's going on here? Turning Point USA is either going to be saved by the billionaires or it's not. Now, the people will ultimately speak, and they will decide whether it's saved. I don't think it will be. But I'll tell you this much. Andrew Kolvet is an untrustworthy agent of the deep state that is trying to hurt this country. It's all about opportunism. It is about money. It is about power, and there is a lot to go around. Tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into that organization. And when it was clear that something was going to be done, Thank you, Ian. So that's enough. Right there, that tells me what I need to know. And that tells you all what you need to know. If you're all enjoying this conversation, which I hope you are, please consider again going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. We have passed 73,600 subscribers this evening. We are continuing to ascend towards 75,000, which again, 4 months ago, we would have thought that's insane. There's no way. Jen was already making plans for when she was dead, not to be able to be buried with the 100,000 subscriber plaque. Now she might actually live long enough to see it. She might live to be able to see it this year. Hey, let's get us over there, guys. The more growth, the better. We have more super chatters that we must acknowledge. Not bloody likely. Thank you very, very much for that fantastic profile picture and your contribution. For the $27.99 Canadian A, hi, Peter. Listening to you and Jen helps me get through this hellscape we all find ourselves in. Also, I want to show off my display pic. Well, I guess you didn't even need to write that because I noticed it right out of the box. Well done. Aksa Hussein, thank you for the £5. And thank you for joining us from over the pond. Your voices are so important and are making a huge difference. Here's to you being the biggest channel by the end of this year, inshallah. And to you as well. JG with the $5. Candace probably knows names of those donors who bailed on Kirk. Oh, I have no doubt Candace has all the names and then some. Alex got mittens with the $10. 82% of Israel's adult Jews are in favor of the genocide, which again is why we must separate Israeli Jews from American Jews. There is a difference, and we must separate Zionism from Judaism. That is also our task. And Alex Mittens with the $2 again. And 83% of Palestinians have been murdered. Well, I don't know if the number is that high yet, but let's just say that if 83% of Palestinians die, it's not going to surprise me in the least. Filipos Gilbert, thank you for the $4.99. What's the difference between TPUSA being funded by wealthy Zionist donors versus the Israeli government? Well, AIPAC would have you believe that there is a difference, but let me assure you they are one and the same. We must get all Israel lobby NGOs, starting with AIPAC, to be registered as foreign agents, and that will slowly but surely sever the relationship, this unholy alliance, with this genocidal state. That's our job. Alex got mittens with the $5. Requisite and pace, Quasicat in pace, Phil Turney. I pray this is not miscommunication. The USS Liberty. I pray it isn't either. I don't have any verification yet. I'm guessing somebody can verify whether or not Phil actually did pass away. But I will say that we kind of lost communication with him over the last couple of weeks. If in fact it turns out that he passed away, that would explain why we have not heard from him. We hope that's not what it is. Libertarian Social Democrat, thank you for the $4.99. If Marjorie Taylor Greene can be the voice of the really oppressed non-Zio Protestants and a conservative for single-payer free college against genocide, I got her back. Hey, I hope so. She talks about single-payer and tuition-free college for the Israelis. I'd like to hear her say that that is what the United States of American citizens deserve. Basil Beshkov, thank you for the $10. Kennedy's Secret Society's repugnant speech. Remember, there's a lot of Kennedy speeches that were amazing, to say the least. Liberty Social Democrat with the $1.99. Kolvet looks like that Zio shit on Pierce Morgan. Hey, I do believe Andrew Kolvet was Jewish. He's from a Jewish family. I'm not saying they all look alike. Not saying that. But yes, I can see the similarity for sure. It's in the shoulders. It's in the shoulders. Basil Beshkov with the $10 again. A2 Andrew Brutus. He's a little brute, but not that big. Don't scare me. Brett Boyle, Thank you, as always, Trusty Mod, for being the 5-month member. FK Zionist, free Palestine. Agreed, agreed, agreed. And Marvin Vargas with the $2. Thank UCK has ordered audit, a lot of money missing. Hey, we need to audit a lot of things in this country. But I'm not holding my breath. And so again, patreon.com/revolutionary change. For $5 a month, you can make a real difference. Or you can contribute to the Revolutionary Change Pack. If you want to see real change and not have to put your name on the grid, that's another way to do it. So with that said, we hope you've all had a great time with us this evening. We've got one more story to cover, and it is a good one. Dave Smith sits down with Nick Fuentes, and they discuss the nuances of the Israel-Palestine question. This will be interesting. Here we go.
You know, it's just like you see it. I mean, I know because you talk about it, like the low IQ slop shit, where it's just kind of like, dude, this is okay. I know forever you weren't allowed to touch that button, and so you're touching the button because you weren't allowed to. But a stupid point, it's like you're allowed to touch it now, dude.
Yes,
and it's just not that impressive. It's kind of like a silly argument. Although I will admit it's quite funny at times.
Well, yeah, I mean, the edgelording, even for me, has lost its appeal. It just seems passé because 10 years ago, you couldn't say that stuff, and that's what made it provocative.
Yeah.
And now you can say it. So, and also, it's been done for 10 years. So, internet edgelord, oh, you've never met someone like me before. It's like, we've all seen that. But I would say that here's how I would characterize the issue, because I hear that a lot, that the Zionists and the anti-Semites are sort of in the self-reinforcing loop. And I would say that how I would characterize the problem is that, you know, in some sense, the Jews are rational. The neocons are rational, because what they're saying is there's kind of two answers to the Jewish question from the Jews, which is we need to return to the land, because only when we have another Jewish kingdom will we have sovereignty and be able to protect ourselves. There's another answer to the Jewish question, which is if we push liberal universalism, everyone will tolerate us. If we push religious tolerance and racial tolerance,
right,
then people will see us as themselves or the greatest among the nations. These are two strategies, and they're both rational, because after by the way, there was anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany. Maybe that's I got the call to say that, but it's true. You know,
I think that's
the way things are.
Is that a controversial thing?
Might be. I don't know.
Not even the Holocaust, just anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
They weren't so fond of him. That's for sure. Yeah.
So I bring this up because one thing about Fuentes that I think a lot of people need to remember, and I do not agree with all that much of what he stands for. I agree with things specifically pertaining to certain issues. But the thing you have to remember about this guy is that you've got millions upon millions of angry, hurting, and desperate people in this country, especially a lot of desperate young men. And they're raging, and they see this kid as their outlet. He's saying the things that add fuel to the fire. And with Charlie no longer here, well, he's going to get a lot of that support. And this is what happens, as I mentioned during our main stream on Thursday. If you do not have voices of consequence with large platforms that are on the populist left that can combat Nick, you're in trouble, because they're all going to go to him. And now that what a lot of people deemed as a relevant voice regarding Hassan Piker and his supposed abuse of his own dog, true or not true, that's going to hurt him in a big way. And if he did, then he deserves all the hell he's going to get from it. Fuentes could easily be intelligence. He certainly changed his tune when it came to whether or not Israel had something to do with Charlie. But I like Dave Smith a lot. And I can understand why he's talking with Fuentes. Now, you're not going to change him. But you know what you got to do? You've got to get people that listen to Fuentes to see another angle. If you're right on a specific topic, but your nuance and how you got to that place is not correct, then one has to ask themselves, can there be more than one way to do it? That's our job. At least that's my job. I know Jen doesn't want any part of it when it comes to Fuentes, but I'm willing to take it on. You cannot justify the disentanglement of this relationship between Israel and the United States and think that the solution is white nationalism. Okay, I saw something that did not look right regarding Hassan. It did look like that he zapped that dog. Now, everyone can have an opinion about it, but I know what a shock collar feels like. I had a dog that required one, and once I understood the level of pain that throws, I wasn't for it. Again, I'm not here to argue about Piker. He's done a great job pushing the narrative that needs to be pushed regarding Israel-Palestine. But there was something about that didn't sit well with me. And like I said, we're the United States of America. We are not a white Christian nation, no matter how much somebody wants it to be. There is nothing wrong with being proud to be white. There is nothing wrong with being proud to be a white Christian or one or the other or both. But the Judeo-Christian, Zionist, nationalism, all that shit, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but that's not our country, and it's never going to be. So you can prophesize if that's how you want it, if that's how you see it. This is a class war, and the sooner you realize that that's what separates us all, education, healthcare, economic opportunity, the air you breathe, the water you drink, all of it, it's all connected. And if you think that the way to deal with this is to just say, well, if we're more like a white nationalist or white Christian nation, that'll solve the problem. No, it's not it. It's never going to be the answer. We can all have our beliefs, but we cannot push those beliefs on other people. We are all entitled to our own life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's the American way.
But it's like in Germany, but also in Russia, but also in America. There are quotas in the universities. Emerging from that time, it is, like we say, the world's made up of races. They have these interests. It's in the Jewish interest to do these things. So Soros takes up the cause of the Open Society Foundation. And open society is based on this philosophical premise, I think from Bertrand Russell, which says we have tolerance and openness and egalitarianism. And the Likud party, or, the Haganah, the security element in Israel, they work to get power. And they say that to make the world safe for the Jews, we need Israel. To make Israel safe, we need control over everything west of the river. To do that, we need to destroy all our enemies in the region. Like, there is a rational chain of law. When they say Israel has a right to exist, they mean we can't exist if we're staring down the barrel of 10 countries that hate us. There's a logic there. And
the only logic is that This all started as a result of the Zionist state that was created in 1948. That is the only reason that any of this came about. And I would think that that's something that Fuentes would say. Why do the 10 countries that surround Israel hate them so very, very much? It's pretty obvious why they hate them. They hate them because they don't belong there and they're committing genocide, and it was never theirs to begin with. Fuentes has changed his rhetoric since Charlie Kirk's assassination. Maybe not completely, but on the state of Israel, he's definitely shifted. If anybody's been paying attention, it's clear.
I would say that in some sense, that's a legitimate way to think. It's a legitimate interest. But I distinguish myself as a white person, as someone from Christendom, as an American. And I'm looking to disentangle the Jewish interest from the American interest and say that, you know, when you say it's bad to say Hitler had aura, I disagree in a sense.
I'm not saying necessarily it's bad to say that. I'm saying that you understand that, like, that is going to be something that might make a lot of people go, oh yeah, I don't want to deal with that guy.
But here's where I would push back in a sense is, you know, as a white person, like, why is it that the Holocaust is so toxic? It's because, you know, Jews sort of made it that way. Like, we don't look at the Holodomor the same way. We don't look at China. And you know all these arguments.
I think that's a totally legitimate argument. It's something I've been saying for years, too. I think that the idea that Jews have a monopoly on World War II is like insane.
Now, Dave is right about that. And it's actually, and I should have paused it a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to let it drag out for too long. I want to be very crystal clear about this. Yes. If there is one thing that we have to be, no one here should ever dispute exactly whatever the number actually was in terms of how many Jews were mass murdered during World War II. It pales in comparison to how many Russians were mass murdered in World War II. It pales in comparison to how many Chinese were mass murdered during Mao Zedong's takeover just a few years later in 1950. But that doesn't get talked about here in the States the way that it should. And as I've often pointed out, World War II was won in Europe by the Russians, by the Soviet Union. We, the United States, won the war in North Africa and the Pacific. That we did do. But we did not defeat the Nazis. The Red Army did. And that's a rewriting of history that people don't want to talk about. In fact, most would argue that World War II was lost by the Axis powers when they couldn't reach Moscow in the winter of 42. That it was just a question of when, not if. To get pushed back. But again, another story for another day. But Fuentes is correct in that the monopolization of the talking points regarding the Holocaust and World War II, not that what happened to the Jews wasn't bad. Of course it was. It was a fucking genocide. However, they're not the only people that were mass murdered during that war, and they want everyone to believe that it's all them. I don't know what the exact number was in terms of how many Polish people were mass murdered, but there's another example of just how bad this has gotten when it comes to the rhetoric. That is what the Zionists, not the Jews, the Zionists have relied on for generations. They have cultivated this narrative forever. And if you go back and you watch so many of the films in particular that were made during World War II or about World War II, it was always centered in many ways through a Jewish lens. That's not good. So there's a reason why the resentment grew so strong. We have to understand where people we disagree with are coming from. We are too divided of a nation not to have these conversations. I'm not saying that I'm going to change Nick Fuentes, because I'm not. But can I potentially show his millions of followers that there is another way? That it's not all black and white? It isn't. The easy thing is to say it's the Jews. The right way to say it is that it's the Zionist Jews. That number in Israel is real. The number in the States is a lot different. And it is a class war, and that is why the wealthy elite Jews in the United States are Zionist, proud of it, and do not care how much anti-Jewish hatred fervor comes as a result of their behavior. They do it because it's good for business. That's it.
And or that anybody should, like prioritize past Jewish suffering over other sufferings. I mean, like, yeah, it's a horrible thing happened, but
can I just
sure, go ahead.
So, when I say Hitler had aura, I'm trying to basically set a new paradigm where, it's like as Americans and moreover as white people, it's like that doesn't have the same impact on us emotionally. It not necessarily. We only feel like that way because of movies, because of museums, because of propagandizing. And, so when I look at like Larry Fink, Bill Ackman, David and Larry Ellison, I look at them as part of a corporate entity. Like they're not individuals that happen to be Jewish. They are the Jews. They're organized. They work together. And as an American, I basically want to take power from them and give it back to Americans. And that necessarily is going to make them weaker and more vulnerable as a community. And, so when they say that's anti-Semitic, it's like, of course, everything that's taking power from them to give it to us is going to inherently like bolster the narrative that they're becoming more vulnerable. But it's a necessary part of getting power.
And he's right. And what he should be pointing out, which is what we should all be pointing out, he just named 4 specific Zionist billionaires. Do you really think that the average Jewish person in this country can identify in any way with Larry Summers, Larry Fink, Jamie Dimon, Mark Zuckerberg, George Soros, Larry Ellison? No, they can't. But those very wealthy, powerful Zionist Jews, they want people to hate them because he gives reason, or they are given the reason to continue to perpetuate the Zionist state and continue to push the genocide. We must parse the difference. If we don't, we're letting them continue to win. We can't have that. We are better than this, guys. Do not allow the simple explanation to win over because it's easy to just say it's the Jews, that's the reason. And as was pointed out in the chat, the Christian Zionists, that's a great way of putting it, Josephine. I would go with that. And the Christian Zionists have the numbers. The Jewish Zionists have the money. But the Christian Zionists have the flock. And that is the unholy alliance. That's where the relationship comes together. And Charlie Kirk, in particular, with the flock he controlled of the Christian Zionists, was starting to pull away from that. And they could not accept that. This is what they've all been working for, but they know They know that their time is limited in terms of their power structure. It's not going to last. It can't last. It's too obvious at this point that they're going to lose. And it is our job to make sure that they lose. And it is our job to make sure that individuals like Nick Fuentes do not control the narrative across the board, especially with the youth. We're not talking about Israelis. Fuck them. We're talking about our country. We're talking about American Jews who don't want anything to do with them. Who do you think is the majority of people out in the streets right now protesting against the genocide? They're Jews. But that's not a narrative you're going to hear on corporate media. You think Barry fucking Weiss is going to allow a talking point like that on CBS? I mean, it's just so obvious now, guys. We just have to be real about what's going on. Make sure that you don't lose sight of the fight that is ahead of us. I don't believe for a second that this ceasefire is going to last. There are already reports that it isn't lasting, that they have already broken it, they are already attacking, and lo and behold, we are going to be showered with propaganda left and right. That is why Larry Ellison is using his fortune to buy off all of these media outlets. Like I said, it's already CBS and TikTok. He's already making a move for CNN. You think he's going to stop? The guardrails are not there. His intention is not to stop. His intention is to keep going. So let's stop him. We work together. We fight together. We save our country together. And either way, it is a revolution. So let's make that change. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. I can't thank you all enough for being with us this evening. Love you all. Appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday, and free Palestine. Good night, guys.